talking about today. Oops. So I'm going to look at a few specialized databases. I'm going to kind of pick a few that I just want to feature, a couple of EBSCO. EBSCO is a platform for a whole bunch of research databases that we have at Bewley Library. And I'm going to pick a couple and do a couple searches. I'm going to talk about mastering advanced searching, what techniques, what tips, like how do you get the most out of your searching? A lot of these databases are changing. They're allowing natural language searching. You don't have to have as structured of a search anymore with all of those operators, but that is stuff you still need to know. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. Citation tracing, which would be, finding that really good piece, that really excellent publication for your research area, and then sort of going forwards and backwards, looking forward to what newer studies have cited that piece, and then what older studies do they cite in that article that is important to your research. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some other key resources, gray literature, finding data, just dabble into using AI research tools. I feel like that's an area we just have to address with every kind of instructional session like this, every kind of research session. It can't just be, the AI session. In my opinion, we have to talk about this when we talk about any research area, because there are some tools that are really good. And then about your research partners, the librarians at Bewley. Thank you, Rihanna, for putting your intro or your bio in the chat. So to talk about specialized databases, and there are lots of students and even graduate students who come to the library and don't even realize that there are databases that solely focus both full text and abstract, which would be the summary of the article databases. So, and it's important that we use those, not sort of always default to that Southern search, which is looking at our entire library catalog, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But so Southern search would just be that one stop looking at our whole collection. But there are some databases that don't necessarily index in Southern search. And in those cases, you want to be sure that you're searching directly in the database that you need, not only because they're not indexed sometimes in Southern search, but there's just different language subjects, terms that are only used by databases for research in that area that you really couldn't search in the general kind of Southern search catch-all of looking at our collection. So the depth there, access, a lot of it's not indexed other places. Those controlled vocabularies, that's the fancier way of saying what I was just saying about certain language that's used to index materials, functionality, and there are different types of specialized databases beyond that. So we have the subject specific one. We'll look at like Business Source Premier today. We'll look at Sociology Source. Those are two EBSCO databases that are subject specific to abstract and citation databases. Those are other types of databases that we'll talk about. And then there are some databases that are really good for systematic reviews. Whenever you get if you get to a point where you're working on that, that's helpful to know. So this is I put this chart together it captures the differences in sort of in a visual way between the library catalog, which is that Southern search I've been talking about that you access from our website, and those subject specific databases, and then those abstract and citation databases. So some of you might have heard of Web of Science or Scopus. Those are really those abstract citation databases that have very broad multidisciplinary coverage. And that's where you can really do that citation tracing forwards and backwards that we'll talk about in a little bit. And those are really good for sort of mapping influence of a scholarly work, analyzing research trends. Whereas subject-specific databases like Business Source Premier, PsycInfo, ERIC is an education database, Medline, CINAHL, nursing, those are going to have very deep coverage in those specific subject areas. They use very specific controlled vocabularies, and they offer advanced searches using in those specialized formats. So this is kind of an overview. I'm not going to go too far into the systematic review databases. That's kind of a whole Systematic reviews, we could spend days, and there are whole like week-long training sessions for how to do systematic reviews. Will that I just want you to be aware that there are some databases that are oftentimes used in systematic reviews, and but we won't go into that in great detail today. So finding the right databases for your research. The one thing, I want to be able to, hopefully you can still see it, but I want you to be able to look at the library website. Um, Okay, so Southern Search here on the library on the catalog and the library's catalog on the library's website. So if you haven't been here before, this is what it generally, this is where you're kind of going to be that starting place to get to all of our databases, all of our electronic resources. It's really sort of that one-stop kind of portal to everything. And so from here is where I would say you can either click find a database to find your specific database that you know by name. Or if you're not unsure of what subject databases we have, you can look under all databases and then search by your subject area. So let's say you're in, I'm just going to pick business to start. There are some best bets here. So ABI Informed Complete, Business Source Premier. If I were going to pick, let's go down to education. But I want to get rid of business. So education research complete. You'll also see on the right-hand side the subject specialist for your area. So if you are in, say, if you're in the ED program, that would be Carla Jones. She's our education librarian. So she would be who you might set up an individual research session with if you have to, if you're having trouble with your research or if you just want to take it a little further. And that's her specialty area. So she would be able to help you with that. So this is where you would get to those specific subject databases. Now, when we're talking about something like Web of Science or Scopus, those are those abstract and citation databases that I mentioned before. Those you can get to by database name. So I'm going to just uncheck that. And Web of Science, all of these are on our A through Z database list. If you are just want to click around or see what we have, many hundreds and hundreds of databases here. So Web of Science is, you're not going to necessarily find the full text article in Web of Science. What you're going to find in Web of Science is the abstract or that summary, and then it's going to link you to the full text if we have it in our collection. If for some reason we don't have it in our collection, you can always place an interlibrary loan request, and those are usually, especially if it's not an old article, they're going to be electronic. It's going to come, very quickly, 24 or 48 hours. Older articles that need to be physically scanned from like a print volume might take a little bit longer. But Web of Science is one of those that I'll talk about in a little bit about citation tracing. The other one to mention is Scopus. This is a very important, huge abstract and citation database of peer-reviewed articles. So it's really kind of highly regarded in just about every area that I think everyone here is studying, is doing their graduate work in. So technology, medicine, all the social sciences, the arts, the humanities. So Scopus is another really important database. So all of those can be found on our A through Z database list, as well as our contacting your subject librarian. If you're not, before I forget, if you're not sure of who your subject librarian is, you can always go to under services, make appointment with librarian, and search for the person in your subject area. So if you're in psychology, that would be Rebecca Hedreen. So we have a subject librarian who specializes in every area that we offer at Southern, every major, every program. So definitely take advantage of that. And even if you don't have a specific question, but you just want to get to know them, feel free to set up an appointment or send them an email and say hi. Because for graduate work, it is really important. You're taking things a step further. We're talking about things that you're not talking about as undergraduates, citation managers, and scholarly research at a level that you don't do as an undergraduate, and all types of starting to think about your scholarly identity, submitting articles you write or co-write into to appropriate journals. That's even something you can start thinking about. Uh, so those are all things you can talk with your librarian about. So just to push further, I'll leave it like this. So for advanced searching, there are reasons for it. It can be frustrating to use all of these Boolean operators and or not, and to kind of have to worry about all these little symbols and wildcards and field searching. But many of our databases still don't have natural language searching, which would be like a Google type search where it can kind of infer what you mean from your question. You do have to set up your search string very specifically. And that's where these techniques come in handy. Let me give you some examples in the next slide. So if you're doing phrase searching, usually those quotes around your term, your topic. So climate change is going to search that exact phrase. So it won't find climate and change, at two totally different places in the record. Truncation. So if you're looking for any variation on educate, so you just want that root word, educat, you can use that asterisk to find educate, education, educational. Some databases use slightly different truncation symbols, so it's always good to check. I can show you how to check in, say, EBSCO databases in a minute. But that sometimes varies. Wildcard. So if you're looking for woman, women, and you want to put a question mark, that's typically the wildcard searching symbol. Boolean operators, usually uppercase. Some databases, it's either one. It's not case sensitive. So that and, of course, is going to narrow or broaden and not exclude a term. Those proximity operators are not used as often, but they're still useful occasionally. So, if you want to find terms that are near each other, but not necessarily right next to each other, you can use like N5. So you're saying that tax and reform are within 5 words of each other in the article. And the same in field searching, TI or AU. So every database has different ways of searching specific fields and subject. I can show you subjects in just a few minutes. And every database has this all mapped out for you, all laid out for you. JSTOR is one database, which, I just have an example here, which they outline what specific syntax they use. So it's good to know in the ones that you're going to be working in. So get to become familiar with them. And then you don't have to learn every database, but if there's a couple that are really useful to you, it's nice to kind of take a look at what their search help features are. So I'm just going to try a search in, I'll try Business Source Premier and then Sociology Source Ultimate, which are both on the EBSCO platform, which looks very different if you've used EBSCO databases before than it did even a year or so ago. So I'm going to go back here to the library's website, and I'm going to find Business Source Premier first. So you're going to see under Business Source Premier this natural language search button that I'm pointing to right here. So that's going to allow you that uses AI. So it allows a more conversational language type search. So it improves sort of the context understanding and maybe the retrieval accuracy. If you're old school and you're more of a traditional searcher and you want to have that search string with all of your operators, I would suggest turn that off. Or my probably more than anything, I would suggest trying it both ways, which is what I do, just because I'm a curious person and I like research, so I try every which way. And compare your results. It's interesting to do that. So I am going to turn it on, but there's a couple things I want to point to. So on the left-hand side, you'll see under subjects authority, you can look up how Business Source Premier indexes certain topics. So if I'm thinking of remote work and I want to do, say, research on remote work and employee satisfaction, but I'm not sure how Business Source Premier refers to remote work. They might use some other term for it. And this is kind of an old word for it, but it's still commonly used in a lot of databases. So you can see down here, they use telecommuting. So that would be something where I would just pop that in and you can add it to your search at the top. So now we're doing it the old way. We're not, this is an advanced search. It's kind of automatically converted us to an advanced search. We're not doing a natural language searching here. But now at least I just wanted to point out, if you're unclear, if you're very unsure what your database might call a concept in your field, then this is something you might want to check. Going back to a new search, I'm going to ask it about remote work and employee satisfaction or retention. Now, I want to be sure if I put natural language search, it's going to figure out what I mean. So I don't need to put in my quotes. I don't need to put in my and or. It will figure out what I'm asking for. So I'm going to leave it at that. If I weren't going to leave it at that, I would do something like remote work in quotes. Now that I know telecommuting, I can add or telecommuting. If you don't know in advance, and employee satisfaction or employee retention. So I'm going to put those in quotes too. Now I want to put this in parentheses so that it can prioritize the or there and then add this one at the end. And I'll just see what I got here. So I have a lot here. And this probably would not be my final search because 17,000 hits is just way too many to go through. So just to compare, let's do a comparison with a natural language search. I'm going to put remote work and employees satisfaction or retention. I'm going to pretend I don't know the commuting term. And that's going to get a much more limited number. So this is really something that requires experimentation. And if that might be something where you sit down with, if after you're doing it yourself, if you're still unclear, you're still not finding what you need, sit down with your librarian, kind of refine your terms, really take a close look at that subject's authority on the left-hand side. So just a couple things I want to point out right here. If I would say this first article is really important. This is one that I'm just saying it for the sake of an example. But if this is something I really wanted to get, you can always, there are some little tools in the upper right-hand corner that I just want to kind of mention and call out because some, even though as grad students, you might know this already. I just want to remind you that every database now has something about citing. So it has citing help. So it's able to pre-format a citation in whatever style you ask it to. And that's something you could copy to your clipboard and just dump into your reference list if you're using this for your research in a project or a paper. So that's always helpful. If you're using a citation manager, which I believe Rebecca Hadreen, one of our other librarians, did a session on citation managers, Zotero. In particular, this is somewhere you might go to export this record to your citation manager. So I use both Zotero and EndNote. They're both good. I like them both. Zotero's free, so I'll just give you a plug for that. There is a version of EndNote that is free, the EndNote Web. So if you want the actual EndNote that sits on your desktop, that is a subscription, or you have to pay for that. But EndNote Web is free, and Zotero is very, very useful. A lot of graduate students really love that. So let's say if you did have Zotero open on your, I didn't plan to do it, but maybe I will. You could export this article into Zotero by doing export in RIS format. So I would click this. It's going to save this file somewhere. And then my Zotero is taking a while to open. So maybe I'll come back to that in a minute. Then you would open your Zotero and import that record into Zotero. So again, if you need help doing that, we're happy to help you, kind of sit down with you and navigate that. But that is a really good feature. And I highly recommend if you are doing getting into heavy duty research, you really need to have some kind of citation manager that is going to organize your research and sort of allow you to sort of pursue multiple research intensive projects at the same time. I would highly recommend that. So I just wanted to mention that. And of course, you have all the same options that every database where you can download. Now, this little tool or this little login in the upper right-hand corner is not your Southern login. That is going to be a separate login that you create. You can create it with any username and password, but it will allow you to save your article, but only in your EBSCO account. So it's not going to save it in the library's account. It's not going to save it anywhere else in your student account. It's only in EBSCO on it and you have to log in. So just wanted to clarify the difference between the login to specific databases and the login to the library website and your library record. They are different things. So just going back to my results, I wanted to point out there is a new feature. I'm trying to see where, okay. So the third one down, we have, even though this is Fortune, I'm more interested in using this on an actual academic scholarly article. There is a new feature called Generate AI Insights. It's a beta tool that they now have on every academic database is now rolling out things like this. It's an AI feature that's kind of an add-on to the database. It's really good to be aware of it. People seem to really like it. So I'll just say that, especially undergraduates, because sometimes abstracts, and you all know, they can be a little hard to wade through, especially if it's not a research area you're super familiar with. And sometimes they're just not very good. The abstracts are written by the authors of the articles. Some are much more readable and clear and do a good job of representing what they're going to talk about in their paper, but other ones do not. So this tool it can be helpful for kind of scrolling through and getting a sense of what this article is about without going to the record, reading the abstract. So it's something that's in beta. It's, in test form right now. And we'll see how this comes out. But I just want you to be aware of it, what that is, if you see that when you're doing a search. So just to do a different search, but yet in the same database, let's go back to Sociology Source Ultimate. And I'm going to do a little bit different topic now. So let's say I'm looking for, and you'll notice it's a little different here. It doesn't have, first of all, it has this PICO, which those are specific queries that are usually used, most often at Southern in nursing, but that can kind of guide your search. You enter your keywords, add it to the advanced search page. Nobody's in nursing here, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but it's a type of guided search that's helpful. Oops, I'm going to go back to, there we go. So you see, my natural language search here is not available. that might happen. So it's turned on for some databases, it's turned off for others. It's just very dependent. And that's why it's good to know how to structure a search without it. So here I'm going to ask it that I want to do research on social media and social stereotypes. So I'm going to have social media and stereotypes here, and I'll do my search here. So again, if you're definitely looking for just peer-reviewed articles, you don't want magazines, you don't want reports or gray literature or newspapers, you want to make sure those get filtered out, you can click that peer-reviewed at the top, and that's going to narrow your search. You should find the AI insights on here too. Some articles it's not available for, so just be aware of that. It's not always available. But it will be on a lot of them. And the other thing I want to point out is there's something called Publications Authority, which we also had in Business Source Premier. But so say you wanted to limit your search to one specific journal and you can search for it down here. So I'm going to look for the Journal of Marketing. No, I'm sorry. The Journal of, I was just going to say, there we go. And I'm going to add that to my search. So it's automatically going to add the abbreviation for how you should search for journal. And if you would look down here under all fields, you'll see that confirmation that the JN stands for journal title. And then I'm going to search. And so I'm going to look for this topic, these keywords only in the Journal of Social Work, if I want to be very specific about what I'm looking for. So that's another way to kind of shape your search as well. So flipping back over here, going to talk about citation tracing. So building on what you found already. So citation tracing, and probably all of you have already done this in some form at some point and just didn't identify it. And it's just common sense, maybe. So that's going to look at the reference list of, say, a key article. And as you probably all have gotten into research a little bit, you found like one article that's just really useful for you. And that's where you might look at that reference list. It's especially important if it's something that's foundational or classic or kind of a seminal article, kind of a really important article in a field, and it really grounds your literature review. So forward citation tracing is also important because it allows you to see what's been using that seminal work. What are some newer research, newer publications that have cited that work? So it tracks who has cited the article and shows you newer studies, maybe newer authors, say an evolving debate, like it's taken a twist into one direction that you didn't expect. And that really keeps your research current. So again, I kind of already talked about this, but why is it important? It's really important in identifying recent developments in your field. So you're doing work at the graduate level now. So it's not, you're missing out on, say, a really key piece that was published last year on your topic is just not going to fly like it might when you're an undergraduate. So it's really important that you really scour that backwards and forwards and see what has been published in the area that you're researching. And then it also allows you to kind of see which authors are really big names in this field, which to look for. Also reproducible search strategies if you do end up ever doing a systematic review, and it can just also widen the really important pieces you find, from the kind of slightly relevant to like a mess of really relevant articles. So there's a few places where I like to kind of suggest doing this. Google Scholar has that. It's not terrific, but it's okay. It has that cited by feature. I'm not going to show that. You probably all looked at Google Scholar before. And it's quick. It's very easy to get into. But Web of Science is one that I do want to point out. So I'm going to go over to the all database. Actually, I'll just go to here. Has anyone searched Web of Science before? Looked at articles with Web of Science? So here we go. This has also kind of changed. There is a new, if this looks different, if you have in the past used Web of Science and it looks different, it's not you, it actually is. So there's a classic kind of interface, and then there's the new type of search. I'm just going to leave it on the new because we all have to get used to new layouts and ways of doing things, or ways of searching. If there's anything we can count on, it's that everything is going to change, I think. So, um, so Web of Science is, it's good to know not necessarily your topic, but a really important work in your subject area. So for this, I'm going to pull an article that I have just as an example. So, and I think there's a few, and this is the one I'm talking about. Yes. Okay. So if I open my Web of Science article, I'm going to see the citation network on the right-hand side. So you're going to see the citations. It's 72 times in all databases, 32 cited references, 55 citations. Scroll down, you can see it's Academy of Management Journal. So this is a really big management journal, business journal that's well regarded, highly reputable. So here we'd be able to see, let's see, time cited. This is what I wanted to do. I think I'm not going. Okay, the cited references. Okay, here we go. So here's our list of cited references, which it's able to locate all of those abstracts in Web of Science from here. Some of them, you're going to have this find article at SCSU. Some of them you may not. This arxiv.org, that's actually a preprint server. So that's interesting to see that. And then what's even more interesting is that you're going to see on the right-hand side citations to those specific references. So you can see when we say it's a web, it really is a web. The Web of Science is kind of identifying, kind of locating the where you are, it falls in this web. So you can view this set as you can view these listed references as a set of results that looks like it's your search results hit screen. So the other things I wanted to point out here is exporting. Again, if you wanted to export these, it has the same features that I mentioned in some of the other databases. You can export those as a RIS file to Zotero. You can export it to EndNote online, to an Excel sheet if you want. BibTeX is another file type that you can use for exporting references. You can also click them all and export. So that's really super useful. I think it's not selecting them all here. It should be, but it's not. I'm not sure why. Maybe add to marked list. But you should be able to export them all in every other search I've done. It's allowed me to do that. So the other things to point out on the left-hand side, these quick filters. So something that's sort of highly cited. So which papers have been cited over and over and over again, which are considered hot papers. I'm not sure how they define that, but it would be interesting. I'm probably going to go look that up. Just to note with citations and cited papers, don't ignore research that doesn't necessarily have gobs of citations, because we know how the publishing world is stacked. The same work sometimes gets cited over and over and over and ignore other important pieces of literature, publications that really don't get their due attention. The other problem that we sometimes face are retractions. So there are some highly cited materials that are considered, that get thousands of citations and that are later retracted, which means there was something wrong with it, whether it's their methodology was bad, not bad. Their methodology was not properly done. There was an issue somewhere with the writing. There's lots of different reasons for retracting an article, but it can be scary because in the meantime, it takes years for for publications to be retracted. And in the meantime, it can go on to be cited hundreds of times. And so people are basing their work, their future knowledge on this piece of research that has been retracted. So be aware of retractions. I can actually show you, they usually flag it in most most databases, and even in Southern Search, if an article has been retracted. And it is not as uncommon as you think. So that would be one kind of really quick dabble into Web of Science. I want to do a new search because I want to do a different article. Let's say I'm going to do in social work. This is an area or an article that I've seen again and again. So here we have another article that's well known, that has quite a few, that has some citations and cited references. We'll have an entirely different research session where we talk about creating citation alerts, creating your scholarly identity, a few others, but just know that most of these databases do have this create citation alert where it will let you know if anything new in your subject area has been published. So that's Web of Science and Scopus both have that feature. In order to get this, to check if this article might be full text, there are these full text links at the top. Full text from publisher, which is sometimes available. So you have a few different options here. And I happen to know that this one is widely available. You don't have to pay for access. So any of these might get you to the full text. I'm going to click full text from publisher. So although Web of Science doesn't have the full text in that database, it usually will link you to where you can go for the full text. So here's my article. And then a lot of publishers' websites have all of these. This is another whole area that I won't get into now, but the metrics on articles and journals and how that affects journal reputation, author reputation. I won't go into that now, but it usually shows that on all journal publisher websites. Scopus is another one that I wanted to mention. So again, searching for a known article. So I'm going to go up to Scopus. Oops. So Scopus can be a little trickier to search, but I'm going to look at, let's say, the last article and do a search. So I did find my article here. I'm going to click on that. All right, so it's cited by 83 and its references are 13. So let's take a look. I want to explore I want to view all my citations in search results form. So let's see this here. And now the cool thing that Scopus has is you can explore their citation overview graph for growth over time. So here are all the citations of this paper, my original paper. And if I click I'm going to select all and then citation overview. Oops. Ooh, it doesn't like that. All right, let's try a new search. Oh, Scopus is being really difficult. Hmm. All right, let me close everything and open an incognito window. Sometimes my cookies just get. All right. If this ever happens to you in our databases or in your searching on the library website, there are times where I have to open a new private window. And I think that something happens with the cookies or the cache. And I have to, I completely strike out with what you just saw. So you have to be kind of tenacious. I'm going to go right back into so. Woo! It's really putting me through the ringer here. Okay. Hmm. All right, let's try it one more time. Cross my fingers. Okay, so we were looking for this article, Voices from the Front Line, Social Workers Confront the COVID-19 Pandemic. I'm looking at who has cited this work, and I want to see it in the search results format. Now, let's say I went to citation overview. I want all of these. I want to see them in a graph, and it's going to generate this graph of all of the citations to this paper. Now, if I would go down, I'd say what has cited it recently? So this burnout in social work just happened this year, just was published this year. Mapping social work challenges. I could click on this to see it. So this is one, if that's my research area, I would definitely want to grab this article and take a look at it. So that gives you an idea of how you might trace to forward literature that's citing a piece that your original article that you found and that you wanted to work with. One quick thing I want to point out about another AI tool that you might want to try, I'm going to put it in this so I can use the link, is Research Rabbit. Has anybody used Research Rabbit? Okay, so I'm going to click on that and I want to show you. Research Rabbit is really good at showing this web again. So showing you other works, other publications that are related to the one you have in mind. So here's one example. I have my own account opened here. So the negative consequences of benevolent sexism on efficacy and performance. This is in the journal Gender and Management. So just like Web of Science and Scopus, this allows you to kind of explore similar work, to explore its references, to its citations, to explore authors. And it sort of makes these little visuals of authors that publish in this area. It also suggests authors. So there's a lot here. I could talk for a while on using this and how to kind of use it to connect the papers you found to new papers. But there is a lot. Research Rabbit is free, and I would suggest giving it a try. I have it linked in the slides. And I've had some good luck with kind of getting to new authors and new publications that I haven't been able to find in other sources. So I just wanted to mention that as an AI tool to try. So there's a few other things I'm going to talk about, and I know I'm in the last few minutes, I wanted to leave at least a few minutes for questions, but navigating gray literature, I'm actually going to do a separate session about gray literature in October, in late October, and I'll go in more detail then. But so that gray literature is important for a lot of different areas because you're looking for things that aren't necessarily peer reviewed. You're looking for policy papers or government publications or preprints, which might mean an article before it's actually published in traditional publishing. So why does it matter? Say in an area like economics, sometimes it's really important that you have access to gray literature because time is of the essence. So timeliness is really important in a lot of economic channels, that that research that's happening is published as it becomes available, even if it hasn't gone through the peer review process. That's just one example why timeliness and gray literature, it might be relevant for some disciplines and not others. Unique content and different perspectives. So you're getting perspectives that haven't necessarily always been funneled or filtered through traditional publishing channels, and that can be useful. It also offers more global perspectives, publication biases, policy and practice insights you might not get with peer-reviewed literature. So I'm not going to go in great detail here again, because I'll talk about this in another session. If you're interested in gray literature and you think it could be used for your own research, then I would love to see you at the next session. But those, I just kind of have an overview of what common types, when I'm talking about gray literature, what are we talking about? And I'm going to click right on through here. So one thing just to mention is data. In addition to the digital archives, some of you may need to find data at some point, or at least know where to go to find it. And there are a few that I would suggest. ICPSR is one that is kind of an open data repository that's hosted by the University of Michigan. And I'm just going to show that real quick. Let me get, oops. I'll use this just so I can get to, it's on our A3Z database list, even though it's not a traditional database. It's actually a data repository. So let's say you were doing research on, maybe let's say remote work employees. So what ICPSR has is it's going to show you open data, so data that that these researchers have agreed to make open on in this repository, and you would have access to it. So, for example, this first one, data and code for this would be the project that led to the publication. They usually have the related publication at the bottom, Home Sweet Home, How Much Do Employees Value Remote Work, which was in a Papers and Proceedings. So this data project, it looks like from the American Economic Association, so it's a trustworthy source. This might be some data you might want to look at if you were doing research in this area, or you wanted to use their data for your own kind of analysis. So it is, I just didn't want to completely ignore the data question. I know sometimes it goes at the end and I don't get to it to talk about it too much, but ICPSR isn't the only one. Harvard has a Dataverse. IPUMS is the University of Minnesota's data repository, and then OpenDOAR and R3 Data also can help you locate repositories in your discipline. So the last thing I want to talk about before I mention AI tools is preprint servers. Those are all going to have lots of publications that have not yet been published. So this is going to fall under that gray literature category, but they are useful. ARXIV has, I believe, computer science and a lot of related topics. Obviously, PSY ARXIV has psychology preprints. So that's also something as a graduate student researcher you should check out if that's in your area. So the last thing is just to mention a few AI research tools. So I have a guide, a research guide that focuses on different elements of AI, also some suggestions on AI tools to try. But there's a few I would suggest if you do want to go that route, if it is something that you want to leverage to help with your research. There's something called the AI2 Paper Finder, which is very good. And I'll just show you that really quickly. This is using the same, if anybody's ever used Semantic Scholar, it's using that same bank of information of publications, but you're able to find it's really just looking at hundreds of millions of scholarly abstracts in full text papers. It unlike ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. This is actually looking at scholarly research. This isn't just vaguely and mysteriously pulling it from the ether. And we know they have their training banks, but we don't know what they are. Oftentimes it doesn't cite it. So the AI2 Paper Finder and Elicit, just to go back and research Rabbit, are actually have banks of real scholarly papers that they're looking. Um, I would never suggest going to Gemini or ChatGPT and asking for it to help with the research. That is really kind of a very, not only a dead end, but it can give you really bad information. I just had an experience where I was asking it to review and give me a summary. I was testing it of a well-known scholarly book. And it mislabeled the chapters. It gave the wrong contents summary for one of the chapters. So I was thinking if a student is using this in their classes, they're going to, this is a disaster. So it really is like you have to be cautious with using those for research. There are other tools that can help with summarizing, like Chat PDF and Scholarcy. Those are very good about summarizing, say, a scholarly article that you need help with understanding. And then there are other tools that are really good for writing and proofreading, and as well as the support that Southern offers in this workshop series. So I have the common concerns about AI tools. Just do not upload Southern's materials, like an article you pulled from one of our databases, into one of those like Gemini or OpenAI's ChatGPT, just because you're basically giving it that the article now is in their data bank. It's kind of a free gift to them. So that's all proprietary materials that we have subscriptions and licenses to. So it's just a caution. I'm just mentioning that. Excuse me. So I already mentioned how to find your librarian, and I just want to leave it, and I'm going to stop sharing. I know I have talked a lot, and um, I just want to leave it. I know I have 2 minutes, but if anybody has questions that I can answer or anything that was unclear or anything you want to say.
Thank you. That was really, really informative.
Great, great.
Yes, same here. It's amazing, like all the information you just shared. I was just stunningly exploring myself here too.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
know. Sure, sure. And I know I threw a lot at you and you have the slides, so I know it's a lot. And I know I talk fast at times too. I'm always like, I just want to tell him this, and I also want to tell him this. So I have trouble limiting myself.
This was very helpful. I appreciate all the links and resources. Thanks so much.
Sure, sure. Glad to hear that. Thank you for coming tonight. And if you have any questions, um, I believe you have my let me just put it in the chat. This is my email address. Even though I'm the business librarian, I can still answer just about any graduate question. It's not a huge university, so we all have to kind of wear many hats. So I do end up working with students in other graduate programs. So I'm happy to answer questions, or if it's out of my knowledge, ability and knowledge, then I will refer you to your subject librarian. Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm sure everyone is ready to stop listening and have dinner or a break.
Thank you again.
Sure.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.